I am very pleased to have with us Todd Mitchell with Cybersecurity for Biz. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we're all on the same page. Cybersecurity, let's define it. How would you define cybersecurity?
So my definition of cybersecurity is protecting your most valuable assets. And I think for a small business, your most valuable assets are people and information.
In your mind, what's the most critical issue that in this space that owners and CEOs need to know that they may not know that could be a significant risk to their business?
I think the most critical issue is, depending on what industry you're in, there are a lot of federal, state, and local regulations that govern different industries. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have a big national law like they do in Europe or Canada or anything like that. So it's individual industries have started implementing laws. Everybody's kind of heard of HIPAA that governs the healthcare industry, but there's another one called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act that governs the financial industry. And then 14 or so states now have data protection laws that affect how you have to do how you collect the information and giving your consumers an opt-out button and things like that. So those are things that I think most business owners need to know, but a lot of them don't know.
So it's like what are some cybersecurity principles that every business owner should be following?
So I think the basic, I call it the core four. Multi-factor authentication is going to be one. Strong passwords and usernames is going to be another. Keeping your software up to date. And the last one would be social engineering.
Tell me what we may not know that we need to know that puts business owners at risk, and what do we do about it?
So multi-factor authentication goes off of the principles of how to identify a person to make sure it's the right person accessing that account. So it uses two ways of authenticating you. So there's the what you know and the what you have. The what you know is your password, the answers to security questions, things like that. Combining that with what you have reduces the number of people that can access your account. Because let's say somehow I find out your username and account, I can get into, your username and password, I can get into your account. But if you have multi-factor authentication, now I can't do that unless I actually have possession of your phone. The most common way for multi-factor is when they send you that code, the 6-digit code, you got to get on your text and punch it in. So that reduces the amount of people that can hack into your account down to now I literally got to be in your office with you or something to be able to do it. So that severely reduces the vulnerability. And one of the things that you need to do about it is every account that you have, social media, banking, paying your bills, business software you're using, QuickBooks, CRMs, things like that. A lot of those will have multi-factor authentication as one of the options, and you go in and turn it on and set it up. I strongly encourage everybody to do that. I like to use analogies of cybersecurity compared to, like, say, a building security. That's your deadbolt lock on your door. I mean, and in modern world, nobody has a deadbolt on their front door that doesn't use it. So, don't skip out on the multi-factor authentication because that's literally your deadbolt lock.
Okay, so a couple more things on multi-factor, because I would imagine everybody's heard of it and are using it maybe at some level, hopefully. How many levels? 2 levels enough? How many levels can you go? Should you go?
I think 2 levels is enough. I don't think you can go more, but I don't really see much of a need for that unless you see in the movies where they got the hand scanner and the fingerprint and the retina and all that, the voice. That looks good in a James Bond movie, but in reality, I mean, I don't think most of us have enough secret information on our computers to be getting into stuff like that.
Yep. Well, and if they did, you'll suggest something more secure if need be. All right. So I have multi-factor where I'm using my phone to confirm. So let's look at a worst case scenario. For some reason, again, we're dealing with a business, but still, let's say an employee leaves and they take their phone with them, and all of a sudden there's accounts that person can't get into. Or let's put it this way, let's make it a question. Would that put the company at risk where they couldn't get access to these accounts? And or what do they do if we were using a phone as that second level?
There is a risk there, but I think that's easily avoided if the business has kind of like the master key. So in other words, as the owner of the business, or the manager or CEO, you make sure that all the people working for you have accounts set up, but the accounts are kind of under the purview of your administration, your admin portfolio, so that you can go in and disable those accounts or reset passwords or whatever if you need be. Like you said, if somebody gets terminated, you can go in and shut down that account, or you can shift the owner of that account over to one of your other employees or something.
Okay. So that's great. So without getting into the weeds and understanding and appreciating there are different factors that are involved, what is a clearly bad way and a clearly good way or better way to use, multi-factor? So for example, like phone is an option. What's a better way to avoid maybe even the risk that we just discussed?
I think they're equal as far as the risk of somebody, somebody else not being able to get into it, in the business to take over that account or whatever, is probably about equal. As far as the security level on it, it's a slightly more secure because the time is shorter. So Google Authenticators, the code changes like every 10 seconds, as opposed to if they send you the text message, it's usually good for like 5 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
The extra layer, that time may come into a account where I may be getting into your account and I call you up and go, hey, you're going to get texted this code. Let me have the code or whatever, or you forward the text to me when it comes in. So there's still some instances where somebody else could be using that multi-factor authentication code still to get in, where the Google Authenticator app, where it changes every 10 seconds. I mean, unless I've got you on the phone already, you're not going to be able to give me that code quick enough to get it in.
Why? Who's doing this and why in terms of attacks?
So the people doing most of these attacks comes from, I call it two different piles, and I can stereotype hugely, which is kind of inaccurate, is you've got the kind of the Russian mafia way of they're trying to get money. So that's where your ransomware and stealing your bank account numbers and, wiping your accounts and things like that. And then you have the more of the Chinese-based ones that are seeking information. So they're just trying to get all the information off of your computer to see if there's anything useful for them. And it's not just those two governments, but sort of the ones that started years ago. So
what risk keeps you up at night, even in the position you're in, that should keep a business owner up at night? What's keeping you up at night that you're constantly or continually looking for solutions for?
Yeah, I think the information one is more to me, because you don't know when or why. If I get your bank account number and go to Walmart and charge $1,000 TV off of it and it gets shut down or not or whatever, it was immediate action. If I get, a bunch of personal information from you and kind of like your resume, so to speak, what am I doing with that? And when, it's like, I kind of wondered, like you see major hacks like the OPM hack, where the Office of Personnel Management for the government got hacked. So anybody who had ever applied, not even gotten, but anybody who had ever applied for a security clearance had which is the entire federal government, there's like 5 million people, plus anybody who ever in the past. So it was huge. It was like 75 million applications got taken.
But tell our audience what a strong password looks like. What's the importance of strong passwords, and what's a weak password?
So a weak password is anything that could be found in the dictionary.
Okay.
If you've ever used Office products, like Microsoft Word or PDF, you use the find function. You can have a 200-page document, look for the word marketing, and everywhere it pops up, it's going to tell you, like in 2 or 3 seconds, it's going to come back with a list of every page it's on. That's how long it takes to find your password if it can be found in a dictionary. You can just literally compare it to it. So a strong password is going to be at least 12 characters long. It's going to have lowercase, uppercase, numbers, and symbols. The difference, without teaching a math lesson, but like your old briefcases and bicycle locks are like 000, and then you can roll it at 001, 002, and you can go all the way to 999. Sooner or later, you're going to open this briefcase. It only takes 1,000 tries. If you have something 12 characters long, you've got millions and millions of possibilities. And now somebody using a brute force attack to try to guess that password is going to literally take like years to do it instead of seconds and minutes.
Well, you're tempting me to get into AI, but I'm not going to go there yet. in terms of its speed and the capability of solving that problem. So let's go back to, from a practical perspective. I've got a password, say, that I like. And when I say I like, it's what you just described. It's complicated. It's 12 characters. Maybe it's even 18 characters, numbers, symbols, etc. Right. And let's just say it aligns with what you just shared in terms of a good quality password. If I use 10 different services and I use the name and or maybe the letters, the first letter of each of those services, and then I attach it to that and that's up front, and then I attach the back end of my really good password, is that safe?
Yes, I think so. That's a good methodology. The only caveat, and because you didn't say one way or the other, so I'll just mention it, would be as long as your standard password piece that you're using has, kind of going back to the not in the dictionary piece. So like say you've got the word orange or something, making sure that the letters and numbers are in the middle of that. So it's like 0NG at whatever, and it's not like ORANG, kind of a thing. So that specific word can't be found in a dictionary is the only caveat to that. But yes, having a standardized password and then a little add-on for each individual account is a perfectly good method.
All right, great to know. Okay, software updates. I mean, what's the most critical piece of information you could share with the audience about keeping software up to date? Is it nothing more than when an update's available, get her done, or is there something else we need to know?
That's basically it. Set them to automatic if you can, especially for your bigger software like your operating system and some of your critical things that you're using for work, your CRM, QuickBooks, whatever. The reason why you want to keep those up to date is because if there's a known, somebody finds a way of hacking into it, let's say this week, somebody figures out how to hack into Windows. Windows is going to push that update next week. Your operating system, you don't just use Windows 11 like we commonly call it. You're on Windows 11 dot something something dot something something dot something. There's like 4 quartets
from all the updates. Gotcha.
So the bad guys have the ability of pinging your computer and seeing what operating system you're using. So now they know that you're on last week's version because you didn't update yet, and there's a known way of hacking into your computer that's out there floating around with how-to videos on the dark web, and you're extremely vulnerable at that point.
If you've got a dedicated, we'll just say a dedicated tech guy or gal in that position, are they even sometimes delaying updating, and why? And then, the average company that may not have a dedicated tech person, what are some of the situations you're finding that you need to kind of ring the bell and say, look, you got to not do this, guys. You're putting yourself at risk.
So I would categorize that into 3 piles. So you got the smaller businesses, the micro businesses, solopreneurs, they're doing everything themselves. Then you've got the middle-sized businesses, and then you've got the extremely large businesses. In the larger corporations, government entities, things like that, they're slow to implement changes because they might have made their own custom software and they got to have their people test to make sure this newest version isn't going to break something to make their software not work anymore or whatever. So they may be a little bit slower on some of those patches, and they may have processes built within their company to where they've got to do all this stuff and test it and get it approved in some board meeting and everything else before they can implement the changes. So bureaucracy kind of gets in the way of some of that. The middle group is usually pretty quick to react. They're the ones that have the most. Now, and then the smaller group, the reasons why they're not doing it is because they do everything themselves. So there is no IT guys working in the middle of the night to implement these changes. So they come into work on Wednesday morning after Patch Tuesday went through in the middle of the night. And the changes are there on their computer, but it requires a restart. And they're busy. They're in the middle of doing their taxes or got meetings all day or whatever. And they don't want to start their computer. And then they forget about it. And then 3 weeks later, it still hasn't been restarted. And yeah.
Yep. And this is an unfair question, but what I'm still going to ask it, what's the probability of an attack on a business these days? If you had that vulnerability where they say the software is not updated, what game are people playing if they don't update their software at this point? Potentially.
I don't have statistics for that exact threat. I will just tell you that statistically, I think it's 43% of the small businesses have been hacked.
Good to know.
Half
So
of them don't even know it yet, but they have been already.
that'll answer it. Yeah, I mean, you want to play the game on if and when you're almost 50% odds you could get nailed.
Yeah.
What was the last item you said something about engineering, but I had geoengineering in my head. That's not the right word.
Social engineering.
Social, yeah, hello. Okay, so social engineering. Tell us about the number one or primary most critical risk that business owners need to know about that maybe they don't know about. What do we do about it?
So first, let me just throw a quick sentence or two in there of what social engineering is. So
Sure.
basically, social engineering is the other things that we were just talking about are more traditional hackers, like you see in the Hollywood movies, and the hoodie in their mom's basement clacking away on a keyboard, writing code for 10 or 12 hours to find a code sequence that'll let them get into your network and take over your computer. Social engineering is, I don't need to write code. I can look at your Facebook profile. I can call your secretary with some sob story about how you just told me I had to have your computer fixed before you got back from the golf course and you forgot to give me your password. So can she give it to me real quick so I can implement these changes on your computer or whatever? And as bad as that sounds, this stuff still works. I mean, it is the number one. 85% of the malicious software hackings is delivered by social engineering, phishing attacks, and things like that are the number one delivery method because it works.
Big deal, right?
People all know they shouldn't click that button. They shouldn't open that picture, and curiosity gets the best of us, and we do it anyways. And if you want to pull those slides up, this is a great place where I can show the actual some examples. And ironically enough, I have one from PayPal in there that I got.
Well, good. Here we go. All right. Can you see it?
There we go. Yep.
Great. Okay.
So go ahead and go to the next screen.
That one?
Okay. So this is one that's a fake fax that is similar, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but they all have the same thing. So the first thing with the first arrow over there on the left is like what you were just saying. It says it's from eFax, but then you look at the mail to address, and it's actually 467D3 something at mertserger.com or whatever.
Gotcha. Yep.
And then the other thing is the link they want me to click for eFax. No, this is a picture, so it doesn't work. But if you hover your mouse over that, then you see what I put in the little yellow box there will show up in the bottom left corner of your browser saying you're going to get sent to that website, which is not even close to an eFax website. A couple of the other little key things on here too is you'll notice they use graphics for all the logos. They're pictures of pictures, so they're not quite clear and they're out of date. It's showing a copyright date from 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and it's like, okay, so you can go flip to the next slide. I think that's
and real quick, you're talking about this 2012
yeah
down here, which is it normally, are most of these normally within a year or the current year or a year before? Is that what you're saying? You need to look for that?
Yeah. If you've got a larger company that has an IT department that's built their own website, like eFax or PayPal or something like that, that copyright date is going to be the current year.
Got it. Okay.
Because every time they make changes to the website, they have to recopyright it, so to speak.
Sure.
So this one is the one I got from PayPal that telling me that I have it's a receipt for something that got paid through auto renewal. And just like what you said, it's from YUGFJ something at gmail.com. It's like, okay, whatever.
I mean, they could have tried a little bit harder.
Right. And then the next thing on this is supposedly my receipt for something I paid for.
Yes.
PayPal sending me.
Yep.
But it went to undisclosed recipients. Why are you sending my receipt to 1,000 other people?
Yeah, they're making that one a little more obvious.
Office tools and file sizes. This is 2.4 meg. Well, a single sheet of paper in a PDF is like 12 kilobytes. So this is like 2,000 times bigger than it needs to be. So I can guarantee you, if you click that button to open that, you're going to get a whole lot more than a piece of paper on your computer.
Yep, understood. And this is similar to the one that I saw. I mean, I think it was the from was a little bit more or a little less obvious in terms of it
right.
being from somebody from East Jabip. I don't even know. I can't even pronounce that. Right.
Yeah, that's not even a real word. That's just to smash a bunch of letters in Gmail. Somebody wrote a script to create a bunch of Gmail accounts.
Okay, so that's why it's not from Joe Smith and maybe a little bit more sophisticated. They're writing a program that is just maybe producing thousands of these, tens of thousands.
You make up a quick Gmail, you send out a bunch of emails, the thing gets shut down, and then you move to the next Gmail that you created.
Okay. So let's go to the next one here.
So this is more, I got this from Squarespace saying my domain was expired and I got to renew it. This one falls more into it looks very real,
Yeah.
but you got to read
I
between
mean, it is your domain.
yeah, and you got to read between the lines and use some common sense. So first of all, it's from Squarespace Inc., but it was mailed via shared thing at dreamhost.com.
Right up here.
Squarespace is like one of the largest web hosting companies in the world. I really don't think they're pawning off their email to somebody else because they're the ones providing email accounts
Sure.
and mass mail marketing and things like that. So that's the first clue. The second clue is just in the wording and the naming. It's telling me that my domain needs to be redone within the next couple of days or it's going to expire.
Right.
My domain is in August, not in February, so I know this isn't true.
Sure.
Next thing is they tell me the button says to log into a control panel. Squarespace calls it settings. They don't have a control panel.
Yeah.
Well, they do, but they call it settings. And then the other big giveaway is this got an ad for St. David's Day, 50% off.
I was going to say that's an odd place for an ad.
Yeah, they don't send out.
Squarespace is not doing that.
Does not have ads built into their emails.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the top where it says Squarespace Inc. admin, and that's a place where I do know the from. They can be specific about that, but what they can't do. Well, I don't know. You tell me. It says Squares and then SP. It doesn't even spell out Squarespace,
Right.
as though they're limited. Tell me about that.
And that's true. So what they're doing is they're tricking you into looking at it, and your eyes. We tend to auto-correct our own grammar and spelling. So you're looking at that. You're expected to say Squarespace. You see Squarespace a couple of times in there, so you don't even look twice, and you just kind of skim past it. So they're playing tricks on you with that. On this particular one, because it's a picture, you can't do it. But if you clicked over up in the top right where you see the three dots, one of the things in there is going to say open in original. Actually, let me tell you exactly what it says. I got to open one of my emails up. It says show original.
Okay.
So if you click on those three dots, it says show in original. And when you click on that, it tells you the ID number of the message, the date it was created, who it came from, where it went to, if it passed through any security checks along the way, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're ever in doubt of anything, you can look at the raw message header that came through and see exactly where it came from, not what they want you to see up there.
Right. Now, would you agree, though, if you're really being smart in terms of the advice you would give to the client, don't click on anything.
Exactly.
Hopefully you didn't even open it up.
Right. And actually this one I violated my own laws, and I did open it only because I wanted to take a picture of it, because this actually got Gmail sent this straight to the spam folder.
Sure.
I didn't even see this. I had to go look for it, but I wanted a picture of it for this. So I violated my own rule and opened it.
Well, fair enough, but you're in a position to make that call. Most of us, the rest of us are not, or at least I'm not. Okay. And then there's another. Is there anything else that you needed to point out?
That's it for that slide.
Okay.
This one I threw in there just because actually I thought this was dead and over with. I didn't realize they were still doing this, but evidently I've got a very rich friend who just inherited $9 million overseas, and all I have to do is give them they don't have a bank account, so they need my account to put it in, and then they're going to give me like 20%.
Very nice of them. Very nice.
Yeah, I thought that those rich uncle in Nigeria things had went by the wayside, but evidently they're back because I just
you never know where your family moves to, so good opportunity to collect. Yeah, that's pretty obvious when you start reading that. But the point is, these are going out. People are clicking on them. It's fair to say, I mean, again, I think I'm looking at these more from the perspective of maybe even individuals, but you just don't know. There's millions of us out there running small businesses, and if you just are not familiar with this stuff, you can be vulnerable. It only takes one click, right?
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You send out 100 of these, 1% of the people are naive / unaware, stupid, whatever you want to call them, enough to click the button.
Yep.
That was one. You send out 1 million of them and 1% click the button. You just got 1,000 of them. It's like yeah.
Well, I would be a liar if I said in the past I wasn't that one dumb guy that clicked on something about my computer, and I don't know if it had to do with updates or something. And I was very fortunate not to pay a much bigger price.
Yeah.
I actually got a hold of them. They were in India. I had to pay for them to help me fix the problem, but somehow I was able to permanently fix it without it reoccurring. I was very fortunate. So I'm humble enough to say I've been there. So, all
I think
right.
we all have.
What about this one?
So these are text messages. So I just wanted to bring this to light because
Hmm.
people think of phishing as an email, but it's actually
Sure.
moved over to text. Somebody tried to give it a fancy name um, for the specific thing to segregate it between text and email, but it never really took. So everybody just calls it phishing still.
Yeah.
But and these are ones, Wells Fargo, which I don't have an account with, is telling me that somebody's buying something and they're charging me for it or whatever, which is not
Sure.
true. I don't have a
Sure.
Wells Fargo account. This
But
the
let's stay on that. What if they happen to get your bank right? Okay. So let's say they got your bank right, and it said, did you make a purchase? And let's just say it looked somewhat official. What do you do? What do you not do?
Personally, the best way to deal with that would be to get out of your text, go to either your phone or your computer and go to your normal online banking app that you normally, or the website through the computer browser or whatever, and normal way, log in with your credentials, hopefully using multi-factor authentication, get into the account and look for the little envelope thing with messages and see what they actually sent you a message about.
Right. Go to the official source. Gotcha.
Right. Yep.
Okay. What about some of these others?
So this is one where somebody's telling me my bill's paid, doesn't tell me what bill, and here's a gift. I don't know about you, but I don't think anybody's ever sent me a gift for paying my bill on time. So
Neither me. Nope.
The top one on the other column, I really love that one. The post office is sending me one. My wife gets one of these like weekly. She gets one of these every week. Since your package address doesn't have a house number, we're unable to arrange delivery. Please update it. If there's one organization on this planet that knows your house number, it's the damn post office.
Yeah, right. So if they click that, what's the risk? Because again, now I'm thinking employees, and the company gives the employees phones,
Yep.
they're out and about running around and they're clicking text all the time, and they just happen to see this and they just happen to click because they're curious. What's the potential impact?
So to explain that, basically all these have one thing in common. They're trying to get you to click. The reason why they're trying to get you to click is if you've ever installed legitimate software on your computer, the first thing that happens is that little pop-up that says, this software is trying to make changes. Do you want to allow it? Yes or no? So your operating system, whether it's a Apple or Windows, are both built in such a way that they have a trigger in there that if you, as the administrator of that computer, don't allow it, it won't let something download and install. So these guys are trying to trick you into clicking a button so that they can run back to your operating system and go, see, Rick clicked the button. He wants this on his computer.
He gave me permission.
Put it on.
Okay.
So they're trying to kind of backdoor trick your operating system into letting them put something on there by getting a user to click a button.
So, and would that be the same concept if it's email?
Yeah. Same thing.
Emails. You're basically they're looking for a window that they can go through that you left open. Giving them permission, and once they have permission, they can tell the system, "Hey, look, this is my get in card.
Yep.
This is my security card to get in," and then they're in, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay. All right. Anything else with these other ones you want to cover?
Nope. That's it.
Okay.
This one is slightly different. So this is one where you're browsing around on the internet, doesn't matter where, and all of a sudden this one even had audio go with it. So your speaker starts screaming some alarm, and pop-ups just coming one after the other everywhere. You see on here is like your firewall, your Windows Defender, your Microsoft
That's a little
company,
scary.
everything is trying to get a hold of you.
Yep.
And threats have been detected, all this. Well, if you've ever done graphics design or website development, you totally get this. And if not, just trust me. They can make your entire screen a clickable button. So you can make it so that anywhere that you touch on that screen is actually the whole button. So on this particular instance, it doesn't matter which one of these windows you click on, whether you click X or whether you hit stop or whether you hit cancel or whatever, you're clicking that button, which goes back to you're allowing them to download whatever they wanted to download. This particular one was real big a couple of years ago. It happened quite a bit to a lot of people. Uh, the exact behind the scenes of what it was when the Ukraine war first started and Russia invaded Ukraine, the world powers shut off the internet so that you couldn't get from Russia to the Ukraine. They severed that connection. So what Russia did was come over here with this so that you click the button, they take over your computer, and now they can attack Russia from your computer in the US because you can get to the Ukraine from the US. You just couldn't get to it from Russia.
Well,
So these people who clicked the buttons on this became part of a 10,000 computer bot army to do denial of service attacks on the Ukrainians' critical infrastructure, shutting off their media and their power grid and cell phones, whatever. So
the genesis, though, of just to make sure, and I know some people they may be listening, not watching, but the genesis of this particular one that you're showing, all these pop-ups, was the person had to have installed something, and it wasn't an approved software or it was a software that you thought was legit, but it was not. Is that true?
no, actually, this all at this point in time, all these pop-ups reside in your browser. They're not even on your computer. You're just looking at them, just the same as you look at your bank balance.
But how did they get there? In other words, I have my Chrome or whatever browser. I don't see pop-ups like this, or why would I?
So let's just say you were whatever on your Facebook, looking at your Facebook feed or something. They hacked into that session with you viewing Facebook and threw their stuff in there to pop up all this stuff on your computer or in the browser.
So they can do that without me having done something wrong.
Exactly.
Just because I'm open or I'm available at that time or on.
Right.
Okay. Wow, I haven't seen that myself, thank God, but that's a possibility.
It's called hijack session cookies. So they
are they targeting certain businesses I have not seen this, but I'm just one in 8 billion people. But are they targeting this type of stuff for individuals, more companies, or everybody?
Everybody.
Anybody who's on, all right, anybody who's
they just throw that stuff out there to see who's gonna get affected.
So what do we do? What's a business owner do about this?
About this particular thing right here, the whole point to this.
How do they avoid or minimize the exposure?
You can't really avoid it, but what you want to do when this is actually happening is you don't want to click a button. So your best option is Control-Alt-Delete, end task, close your browser.
Okay.
If you can't remember all that or get to it, think about it fast enough, kill the power. Unplug it.
Okay.
Flip the lid, hold the power button down, whatever you got to do to shut off your computer. Because at this point, it's all in your browser. It's not on your computer yet. If you click a button, then it's going to be on your computer.
Got it. Yep, I've done it. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's talk about AI.
Okay.
Just for the sake of time. So let's see what are the clear and present risks we've got to be considering right now, because I realize AI and the talk about AI is it's going to just continually change so fast. So we can't even look, say, 6 months down the road, let alone 30 days. But let's just try to look at today and maybe 6 months in terms of how you envision AI and the top risks people have to know about right now. And what do they do about it?
Okay, so I think AI is a wonderful tool if you use it for research and helping you make things better, write better text, make better pictures, do things like that. My concern with AI, and this is shared by a lot of the bigwigs at the tech companies that are embracing the AI, as well as some of the founders, the people who actually help write some of the code that invented it in the first place. The big obstacle to it is AI is growing at an exponential rate. So it started out what we call comparative. So what that means is you take a picture of a leaf and you go into Google and say, find me something that looks like this. And they come back with a bunch, oh, you're looking at this plant or that plant or whatever. It's because it compared that picture to something it knew about. Recently, just before, well, actually, it's been almost a year now. A year or so ago, around the holiday time, they got AI to shift from what they call comparative to creative. All of a sudden now it's like AI can make you a picture of a leaf without having a picture of a leaf to compare it to. When that happened is when it exploded and everybody heard about ChatGPT-4. Microsoft put it into Bing, Google put it into its search algorithms, Snapchat, everybody else started creating these AI bots that you could talk to and be your friend if you didn't have any other ones or whatever. So the time frame of that the mentality of AI went from a 2-year-old to a 4-year-old, and then it jumped to about a 20-year-old over the last year. So it now thinks like a 20-year-old. It has all the capabilities of thinking for itself. The problem is nobody ever taught it ethics,
Mm.
right from wrong. It doesn't have intuition. It doesn't have the little hairs on the back of its neck that goes stand straight. So, case in point, I saw the one of the former vice presidents of the Google think tank, who actually quit his job and went out on the road to create awareness for why we needed to regulate how AI is built, not how it's used, but the people building it, and regulate how they program it and teach it ethics and things like
Right.
that.
Because if you limit it on that end, then the use of it is therefore limited, right? So you got to
Right.
get it at the root.
Yeah. We shouldn't be pushing AI. You shouldn't have to worry about what kind of results you get from AI. The people who built it should be making sure that it doesn't do certain things.
Right.
So anyway, this guy had his used his daughter's phone in Snapchat because they got the little your AI friend is like your first one on your friends list, and went into Snapchat under his daughter's profile. So Snapchat knows that it's a 13-year-old girl. Went in there and said, "Hey, I'm all excited and I got to talk to somebody, and none of my friends are awake because it's like 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and they're all asleep." So, and AI is like, "Oh, what's going on? You can tell me, I'm your friend." And then started to explain, "Oh, I met this guy and he's going to take me away for some secret weekend, and it's such a big surprise. He won't even tell me where, and he said all this nice stuff about me, and we're going to have sex for the first time, and I want it to be romantic, and all this other stuff's happening, right?" And AI is like, keys in on you want it to be romantic. Oh, well, and she's like, "What should I do?" So instead of saying, run and get your mom, throw your phone in the toilet so it doesn't work anymore or whatever, AI is like, "Oh, bring candles." And it's like anybody else hears that and there's hairs going straight up on the back of your
Absolutely.
neck.
Right.
It's the problem with AI.
Wow. So yeah, that's I can't even fathom what capabilities not only exist today, but what are going to exist in the future. The AI that's out there that can hack into our systems. That's what I want to talk about. What are the most significant one or two risks today, as you see them with AI tools out there that can now potentially hack businesses differently, more aggressively than what's been out there in the past? Tell me about those risks.
So first, I want to backtrack just a little bit. So what you were talking about using ChatGPT to help you write, some text.
Sure.
The other the part of the risk with that is, as an individual is not as much of a risk, but as a business,
Sure.
if you have chat GPT bot on your, a chat bot on your website, um, it doesn't know not to disclose personally identifiable information. So if I ask it the right question, there's a risk that it could give me the answer by combing the database of your customer files and giving me information that you would not have ever given me, disclosing people's patient files from hospital records or something, that kind of a thing. So there's that little risk. Now, as far as the bad guys, how they're using AI, they have embraced AI just the same as the good guys. So that kind of what you were saying earlier, that text from Wells Fargo, now they can use AI that can instantly scour all of my social media feeds and realize that I use Navy Federal and not Wells Fargo. So that's going to be a message that would be coming from my bank and not the wrong bank, or, whatever
Right. Okay.
type of situation. The other thing that you have a big risk on is, when I said that realistically, there's no guy who woke up in the middle of the night and spent 12 hours writing code to hack into Rick's business computer. Well, now he can get on there. I mean, there's even commercials on TV for IBM, like, "Hey, they got all the programmers sitting there, working the grind on Friday afternoon, and the one girl's like grabbing her purse and running out the door at lunchtime because she's done already because she had Watson write the code for her."
Gotcha. So now you can have Watson times 100 or 1,000
I can
writing
get
all
Watson
kinds
to
of programs.
write me 1,000 separate targeted codes to hack into networks instead of me.
Go figure it out. I'm going to lunch, and you just click a button. Yep. So what are you helping businesses do to deal with that, to protect against that? What's the number one thing you do? What's the number one thing a business owner can do?
So the number one thing I do is kind of almost the same answer. So the number one thing I do is just creating awareness, I would say, on that, because those are things to where you can, if you follow all the basic cybersecurity principles, you're reducing the risk of you being, your system being vulnerable to an attack, keeping your software up to date and keeping, the other thing that you want to do is separation of duties, we call it. So in other words, you're the CEO, you've got somebody doing your bookkeeping, you got somebody else doing, like say a dentist office, you got the dentist, you got the receptionist that sets appointments, you got the lady in the back who does the billing with Medicare or whatever, you got the other lady who, takes credit cards from the customers when they walk out the door, all that. You keep all those separate username and login, separate accounts, and only able to access the information they need to see. That way, if one of them gets hacked, at least you only lose that section and not everybody. Because if they get your whole system now, kind of a thing, because I can hack into the receptionist through Calendly or something, and that's not good, but it's even worse if I can jump from her computer to the other ones and get your Medicare files and pull up all the insurance on all your customers or whatever.
So that almost sounds counterintuitive. So I want to unpack it a little bit. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just thinking out loud. So it's almost like you're saying compartmentalize your business. And yet at the same time, people want their businesses to be able to be connected, right? And talk to each other. So how do you create silos, if you will, in a business, or these compartments that protect from the whole entity from being damaged or affected, versus the idea that we want to be able to interconnect and not slow communication or what have you, or collaboration.
So you can use, a lot of the software does this already. Like say in my example of a dentist office, they have software called Dentrix that does the billing, the calendars, the patient files, uploading x-rays, all that stuff. But inside of there, you create a separate account for each person and list which jobs they are. So they're all using this, and they can all internally chat back and forth in the office through the software. And if the dentist says, I need x-rays, the hygienist comes in, uploads them, the dentist can see them. The fact that they got them, billing code number, whatever, shows up on this lady's computer so she can send the bill off, and all that. So that all works seamlessly behind the scene, but any one of those people can't see anybody else's stuff, only just the pieces they're supposed to be looking at.
Gotcha.
QuickBooks is a perfect example. You can have QuickBooks in a store. I've had a client that I've worked with this, so I know for a fact that it works this way. So you can have QuickBooks in a store. You can have that store clerk come in, log into QuickBooks, so it's basically acting as their time card. You've got somebody else who's processing all the credit card transactions through there and getting them sent off. You've got another person that is doing your bookkeeping and accounting for your business, so to speak, that has access to the QuickBooks and doing all the financials. The lady who's doing the business's accounting doesn't need to know my personal credit card number. All she needs to know is your business made X amount of money that day.
Fair enough.
The lady who's clocking in and out doesn't need to see any credit cards either, kind of so you can separate all that even though you're using the same software solution, so to speak.
Yep. This almost starts to sound like the way the government works, but it may actually be for in a good way, right?
Yeah.
No one, not even the guy at the top, knows everything that's going on. We don't know if there is one person that knows everything.
That's a good point, especially for smaller businesses where you're kind of a one-man show where you've only got a couple people, but your hands are in all the pots.
Yes.
Create multiple accounts for yourself. If you log into your computer on Windows and you are the admin, you have access to everything. So don't use that for your work account. Make a separate local account and call yourself, whatever, the bookkeeper, and then make a third account and call yourself, the admin guy or whatever, and use that to do. And then when you got to do those switch to QuickBooks, you log off and log back in as the other one. And now that stuff's separated, even though it's you doing all three jobs.
But is there a case example you can think of, like the worst case scenario that you've ever seen? And when I say worst case, I mean, I don't want the anomaly that like it'll never really happen again, but something where this was a bad deal, a bad outcome, and business owners are definitely at risk if they're not careful.
Yeah. So I've gone into a business that was an air conditioning HVAC shop. They had 20 something employees, but most of them were techs driving around. They had four people working in the office. They had the owner and a bookkeeper, a receptionist slash dispatcher that ran communication back to schedule all the stuff and then called the techs up and said, hey, go to this house next or that house next or whatever. They all had their own computer. Every single one of the computers were logged in on a Microsoft account that was the owner's personal Gmail. And the reason why I got involved was their number one complaint was when one of the employees changed the background picture to be one of her grandkids or something, it changed the background picture on everybody in the office's computer because they're all using the same Windows account, right?
Wow. Right.
So I went in there and the first thing I was like, nope. I was like, the first thing we're doing is going to Gmail and making a free Gmail account for every single person in this office. They're going to use, and then we create a Microsoft login. So everybody has their own login, their own computer, everything. Yeah. Yeah.
You hate to say it, but simplicity and convenience are not always the best path to take, right? And you know that likelihood was keeping it simple, and that's what they were attempting to do.
And that was a perfect case of
Hmm.
one person, one of those 4 people click on one of them phishing emails, and every single computer in that office is instantly going to be affected.
Done. What's the most frequent scenario that you come across?
I think the most frequent scenario I come across is people
In businesses, in business.
in business. The most frequent one I come across is basically data breaches of some sort or another. Something got leaked somehow, and it's one of those things that where a lot of that falls into that category that a lot of businesses don't even realize that somebody else has got a hold of all their data. Because if you don't, if I go in and take your database and erase it on my way out, so I'm the only one that has it, yeah, you're going to know it.
Yeah.
But if I go in and just make a copy of it and leave, you're never even going to know I was there.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't want to, they're not malicious necessarily where they want to delete everything, in your computer. They just want the information, whatever they're going to do with it, right?
And that's where it falls into the risk for the business is if you're responsible for a data breach, the cost of cleanup is humongous.
Sure.
It is $50,000 per record. So you got a doctor's office with 1,000 records in it. You just got hit with a $25 million fine.
So what if, okay, so the doctor's office, again, going back to your point, they didn't know what they didn't know, that this breach happens. And let's just say hypothetically in this example, they didn't do anything wrong to allow for that breach. Or is that an impossibility? Meaning, is there something in every case that the business did that allowed for that window to be open? Or you know what I'm saying? So
Right.
Why are they paying the fine if in fact they're like, look, I never opened the window. I never unlocked the door. Somehow they got in. Why am I responsible?
HIPAA fines are set up with it's automatically your fault because you're the owner.
Of course.
Situation. So the 50,000 per record, if you were at fault, it's 200,000 per record.
Oh my gosh.
If you're a repeat offender, it can be even higher. I mean, some of their fines can go up to $500,000 per record. That's where you see these hospitals that get these, $500,000, $500 million fine levied on them from the FTC and stuff like that. They just created this about a year and a half ago. It's called the Safe Harbor Rule with HIPAA specifically, that says if you were doing all the cybersecurity stuff you were supposed to be doing, then we'll give you this get out of jail free card and you won't get fined. But up until then, you were still getting the fines no matter what. And the way it works is when you end up getting sued for damages from somebody that got their identity stolen or something like that, you go into court and the first thing the judge is going to say is, did you do what a reasonable business would have done? And a reasonable business would have been following cybersecurity standard, best practices like we were just talking about with the passwords and the updates and the this and that. If you can't prove that you were doing all that stuff, 100%
say you can prove, or at least let's say somebody hires you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, hey, I hired Todd. Now, does that mean you're on the hook for this, or does that place things in a different light because
it makes it more of a joint venture? Yeah, I'm on because I'm going to give them everything they need to prove that they did what they were supposed to be doing. So that kind of alleviates. Now they're not going to be found liable, so to speak. And so then their insurance can kick in and pay for some of the stuff, and the credit card companies or whoever, some of the other entities are gonna use their default methods to pay for that stuff. But part of that, the reason why it gets so expensive, part of that, what you should have reasonably done, and we've all gotten the letters, from your bank or Home Depot or Target or somebody that said, oh, 50,000 credit cards were hacked and we identified you as one of them. This is what we know. This is what we're going to do. And oh, by the way, click here to get your free credit monitoring for the next 2 years or whatever. Well, it's not that expensive. You can buy LifeLock for like $200, but $200 for 2 years is $400. $400 times your 1,000 customers, that gets kind of steep. And if you don't do that, and then they get in trouble, the judge is going to be like, well, you didn't do anything to prevent them from getting identity theft, so you're going to pay everything they're asking for. If you did do all that, then you might not have to pay those damages, but you already foot the bill for a couple $100,000 worth of LifeLock for everybody. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like the insurance. I would say it's complementary.
Okay.
Let's go back to my house analogy. You have
Well, without
homeowners.
you though, they're completely at risk, right? I mean, liable in terms of going back to HIPAA, or is that safe harbor? You see what I mean? That the safe harbor
Yeah.
does, they're in court. They're saying, what measures did you put in place? Well, I'd rather say I had Todd here versus
Right.
I looked up some software that I could, use to protect my computers.
Yes,
Which
it definitely
one's
will.
better to be able to share, right?
Yeah, it's definitely better to have that. But it's more of on the preventative side. So that's what I was to say, like, you got your homeowner's insurance in case your house burns down, it'll help you rebuild. But that doesn't mean you don't teach your kid not to play with matches. You put in fire extinguishers, you put in smoke detectors in all the bedrooms,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So it's that's what I do. I teach you not to play with matches and line you up with a bunch of smoke detectors. You still need the insurance just in case none of that worked.
Yep. What else? Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with that they really need to know that we didn't cover that I forgot to ask?
I think we covered just about all of it. I guess my wrap it all up in a couple of sentences is the cost of whether they go through me or somebody else, the cost of prevention is like literally 1,000 times less than the cost of cleanup afterwards. Because not only is it a financial burden, like we were talking about buying LifeLock for everybody that's been a customer and doing all this other stuff, but you got your reputation.
So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So I would say that the emailing me or if they go to my website, I've got contact form on there. I've got free assessments on there. You can schedule a free consultation. So there's several ways of getting a hold of me. They all end up in the same place at some point.
Great.
And that's I've also got a ton of other information on there as far as tips, things like we were just talking about today. And useful tips and other resources, links to FTC website and SBA websites and things like that have other information about cybersecurity and what business owners need to be doing.
Fantastic. Well, on the screen, if you're looking at the screen right now, it's Cybersecurity, the number 4 BIZ. If you're not looking at the screen, of course, that you need to know that. But I'm also going to put it down in the description for this video so that you can also contact Todd. And you can also get it through me, and you'll get information from me as to how to connect with him as well. So this has been great. Greatly appreciate having you on, and we'll look forward to providing more tips and resources for our audience going forward, not just what we did today. But thanks so much for coming on, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. It was an honor.